session today.
Thank you very much, Ronald, for that very.
Can
Can you all hear me?
Okay.
Yes, we can hear you.
Thank you, Ronald, for that very humbling introduction. And I'm happy to be here on this forum this morning. I can hear someone in the background. I don't know, but I'm happy to be here this morning to
Let me
talk.
try to mute them.
Okay. I'm happy to be here this morning to talk to entrepreneurs, especially the micro, small, and medium enterprises. And I want to say for sure that it is not that I'm helping anyone. This is our work as government, and we want to assure you that we will always be ready anytime you call upon us to come in to support or to give any information that will make a difference in the lives and the businesses of our people. One, you all know East African Community, of course, you've been hearing about it, and I'm sure everyone on this platform this morning knows it very well and is aware that DRC Congo is the newest baby or the newest member on the board. And DRC Congo, of course, brings immense opportunities and quite a lot of excitement within our people on the opportunities that are going to come with the joining of DRC. So thank you so much, Ronald, for inviting us. Thank you with your team, and thank you, the members. I can see the participants online. Thank you so much for joining. It shows that you really have the thirst and the zeal for knowledge, which is quite important for you to better yourselves. So let me, as I proceed, put up, share my screen with you. And if you don't mind, you request me to switch off my audio. Our internet this side is not quite so good. I mean to switch off the video because the audio may be compromised. And then I just share the screen. Is that okay, Ronald?
That's okay. That's okay, sir.
Okay, I'm going to share the screen, but I'll switch off the video menu. I just put it on so that people could put a face to the name. I mean, a face to the name or to the voice that is speaking to them. Thank you. So let me share the screen and the structure of my presentation this morning. I hope I will be able to. Okay, there we go. Okay, now this is just the cover page, and as you can see, where ESC has got 7 membership now, from your left to the right. I don't know which one is which on your side, but on my side is Burundi. This is the flag of Burundi. This is the flag of DRC Congo. This is Kenya. This is Rwanda. This is no, this is Rwanda. This is the South Sudan, Republic of South Sudan. This is United Republic of Tanzania, and lastly Uganda. They are in alphabetical order. It is not in order, any other order, but alphabetical order. So I don't need the key questions that we will need to answer as Ronald said this morning is, what are the opportunities that exist for Uganda's SMEs in the EAC region? As a disclaimer, I want to say that whatever I say here does not mean that those are the exhaustive list, because if we were to really look at opportunities, I'm very sure you guys who are on the ground every day, who are the practitioners, can answer this even better than ourselves. But you sometimes, I think, want to provoke us to see what we have to say. But I know that every entrepreneur is a much more, it has a keener sense of sensing or smelling out opportunities than any other people anywhere else. And how can these opportunities be accessed? And what are the challenges that exist? Both some challenges are internal as in there are challenges which are faced by the enterprises themselves, which are trying to access these opportunities, and some challenges are external. You will find them when you cross the borders, trying to access the opportunities in the partner states. And then the fourth one is, what are the benefits or what support exists from government and other partners for SMEs who are trying to venture into the EAC market. So this I already talked about, the 7 membership, so I will not labor much on it. And these are simple statistics. With the joining of DRC Congo, the population came up to almost 300 million. This is a big, quite a big population. This comprises about between 27% of almost the whole of Africa. So you can see we are really a strong force, and a lot of investors are going to be coming into this area to benefit, especially from this new member, Congo, which is the second largest country after Algeria in Africa. And you all know it has over 1,100 different types of metals and minerals. So there are a lot of investors are going to come in. This is either to set investment in Uganda or in any other partner state to access these opportunities. This means 2 things. One, it comes with opportunities for our SMEs to create backward and forward linkages in these areas. And secondly, it comes also, of course, with a disadvantage, if I may call it so, of increased competition, because as everywhere, every entrepreneur wants to go where there is business. So since we opened up our economy and decided to liberalize, we cannot close it and say, no, for us, we can only come to your country, but you can't come to our country, or we can only export to you and you can't export to us. So we need to bear in mind that opportunities, as they increase, they also come with stiffer competition, and therefore calls for us to up our game to be able to compete with the people who come in. It has also got a combined gross domestic product. This is at the nominal value. If you do it at the PPP level, it comes almost $1 trillion. But these statisticians prefer to do it at the nominal level so that can give a clearer picture. This is the DRC Congo, just a picture when they are signed into the into the EAC community. And you can see the smiles on everyone's face. Behind there is President Kenyatta, who was the chair then, and President Tshisekedi of DRC. So, as I said earlier, you can see the map of our new EAC. Every country now, there's no landlocked country in the EAC now. We are all land linked. You can choose to go through the Atlantic Ocean. You can choose to go to the Indian Ocean. We touch both sides of Africa, from Indian Ocean to the Atlantic, and this is a serious advantage, especially in logistics, infrastructure, and movement, international trade. So once DRC Congo is able to develop the infrastructure, as you all know, Uganda is already in Congo trying to put up some infrastructure, we can reach a time when we can be able perhaps even to decide to use the port of at Kinshasa across this small tip which touches the Atlantic for goods coming to the western part of Uganda, or to Rwanda can use it, Burundi can use it. So you can see this is a serious potential for investors. So on this, I have listed them because I knew if I went into putting one by one, it would take about 30 slides. But I am going to say that the major investments, and I believe many of the SMEs who are on this forum are either in the ICT investment opportunity or in the agriculture and agro-processing. And this is an area which is very critical, especially in providing new types of food and the new types of the new changes in behavior of consumption. Why I'm saying this is that if you look at, for instance, in the dairy sector, you find that Uganda has become quite competitive in the dairy sector, both at the milk and yogurt, although there are challenges which have been happening in accessing some of the markets, which challenges I'll later touch on. And we can have a discussion on how we think that these challenges can be resolved as we move forward. These challenges do occur because every country remains a sovereign country. And sometimes you discover that a country wishes more to protect its industries. Otherwise, if its farmers and producers go out of business, you find that the next electoral cycle, the government may not be looked upon very favorably. So in that particular one of agro-processing, we have things like tea. There are areas of which have opened up, mainly in the area of green tea. There's a lot of consumption of green tea. I do not have the statistics, for instance, right away here, but there's a lot of consumption of green tea, especially because of the influx of Chinese who are in the construction area, both in all the partner states. There are so many Chinese constructing different airports, roads in Kenya, in Tanzania, in Uganda, in Rwanda, in South Sudan. So this is an area where many of them we could supply their need rather than having them to export, for instance, from Tanzania, from China or their tea requirements. Coffee, I need not talk about coffee because you know it has been in the papers for long. But Chinese again also are quite many, and different investors here have learned have taken a taste for coffee. They're picking up a taste for coffee. This is an area, especially if you are in processing, if you are in washing and processing and you call it what, and treating, processing and packing the coffee, instant coffee for drinking. This is an area which is also open there for exploitation. There is an area also in cosmetics, agro-processing. If you look at the cosmetics which are going out, I can give a simple example like Samona and Movit. I think the statistics are not, some of them are even not up to date, but I know personally, for instance, that in Lusaka, which may not be in Zambia, which may not necessarily be in ESC, but which is in the region, a lot of Movit and Samona products are being taken there. And you all know how Samona started. This was an SME, and I think it's still a medium enterprise. But you can imagine now the volumes they are sending there. If you see like KQ going to Lusaka, you'll find that you look at it, the boxes that they load in the cargo with Samona and Movit, you'll be surprised at the volumes that are going there. So I want to encourage those of you who are in the cosmetics, especially like shea butter and others, to also keenly look into that area and see how you can improve and add value to meet into that market. There's also the area of meat products, poultry, eggs, and the other poultry products. There are quite many. Then in ICT, I know the ICT, they are, at least I think they are at the top of the game in creating apps for information and communication, payment apps and all that. In areas like Burundi, that is an area where if you have an ICT expertise, where in Burundi they are still lagging behind on IT. Areas like Rwanda, they're a bit high, the competition may be very, very stiff. You may not be able to compete, or you may compete if you really, really know that your game is up there. But I can tell you for a fact that if you find a way of getting to Burundi, this is an area that is still a virgin area for ICT opportunities. Tourism, I need travel across the borders. Tourism, the car travel, trekking, the these game park tours and hotels, small cottage hotels for low-end tourism, because all tourists that come into this region are not necessarily high-end tourists. Some of them only need you to find just even a space, put their a toilet facility, put the kitchen where they can do self-catering, cooking and catering, and then just where like backpackers where they can put their tents. There's a lot of business in that, and I have known someone who has done that. Just cleared a piece of land of about an acre and a half, put there the proper toilet facilities, put there the kitchen, put there just a small hall where like a bar or a restaurant, and the rest is all grass and garden. And you come, you pay just for a small piece like this, $30 per night. You cook for yourself. There's somewhere you can buy the food, you go to the restaurant and eat. So the only thing he provides is like security and electricity. So I think $30 a night, and he can take over 50 tents in one go. So I think that would be a good business with quite low investment. Building and construction, you can, it's a whole value chain where you can supply different sorts of things, interior decor, the finishing, glass, plastic material things. There's a whole value chain which you can look into. Again, in education, especially in the nursery section, there's a lot of business again in Bujumbura. Education, especially if you go to the nursery business, and also adult literacy, where you'll be teaching like English, because in Bujumbura, many of them speak French and Swahili. Although the national, I mean the ESC official languages are English, Swahili, and French, you find that now, of course, with the exception of Congo having joined recently, you find that the other South Sudan, Uganda, Kenya, Tanzania, and Rwanda were very, very good at the understanding it so well. But it's in Burundi where the English is still, so they have a big market for adult literacy, especially in languages, teaching like English in Burundi. So one can also look at that area and see as a service. If you don't need one small room, and then you advertise yourself, you approach the Ministry of Education. You don't even need to be sleeping there or staying there full time. You can always say that maybe you'll be jetting in or go by bus. To go to Burundi by bus to take you about 12 to 13 hours through Rwanda or through Chanika side. So that's also an area service in Burundi. So let me move to, there are quite many, as I said earlier from my opening remarks, is that I would really be trying to do an uphill task to say that I would list all the opportunities available there. I think the most important is if I could go to what the challenges are and then tell you how we can address the challenges and what type of support we can give you to overcome the challenges, so that once you identify your sector or your niche, you are able to approach us or approach the partners who can assist you in achieving your objective or entering that market of your choice. How do we access these opportunities? The biggest challenge we have had or even seen is that our SMEs have got limited, or I don't want to say poor, I want to say low standards and quality of their goods. Because we find that most of the times we have been on the domestic market, and we are more of the market is more of price sensitive, so they take in almost anything at any standard or quality. But if you want to go out there and compete, as I said, with the other imported products, standards and quality are of essence. Standards and quality are of essence, and you cannot afford to just bring anything. Let's say you are in processing and you just pack haphazardly anyhow without clear labeling, without clear branding. if you do that, I want to tell you that you will find it very difficult to sell in the markets. You know, even right here in the domestic market, one of the challenges that our distribution centers, when we approach them, the challenge they mention why they are hesitant to stock domestic or locally produced products is that the packaging and the quality is usually poor. And in marketing, we are told that it takes only a tenth of a second almost for a person to determine whether they like a product or not, and it is from the appearance. Me and you have all gone to supermarkets, and you look at a product, and you really, just by looking at it, and you feel attracted to it even before you know what is actually inside, the intrinsic value or the contents of that product. So I want to tell you that packaging, the standards, for instance, in packaging and the quality of packaging is very, very critical. What message does it send? It is your silent salesman. Your silent salesman. That is why in the ministry here, we are working strongly. We're working with UNDP to develop a packaging and branding strategy, aiming specifically to SMEs, because we know the big multinationals such as Coca-Cola, the UBLs of this world, the Nairobi, those know how to do in packaging and the branding and the quality and the standards. It is the SMEs that need support for them to be able to improve their packaging. And packaging need not to labor on the benefits of the packaging, besides the selling and the attributes, its beauty, how it can attract customers. It helps you in logistics management, how you transport it, how you store it, how you are able to move it from the place where you produce it to another. It helps in shelf life. There are so many. So there are other areas in packaging, for instance, which have new technology which have emerged, where you find that the package now is also edible in edible products. So that strategy we are doing will come up with all those interventions, which we'll be happy to work with the SMEs and other stakeholders to support our SMEs. Then you need to increase production. Here in the ministry, we always have a big problem. People come and say, no, you see, I produce, let me see, honey. I'm packaging honey, so I need you to find us someone to whom we can supply our honey. Say, fine. You work towards finding that uptaker. We have had examples where we have found uptakers in restaurants, big international hotels. Someone supplies for 2 months. He says they sign a contract, say you'll be supplying for so much, maybe 500 kilograms a month. He supplies for 2 months. In the 3rd month, he starts bringing 300, gives excuses. In the 4th month, he brings 100. In the 5th month, he brings 50 kilograms. In the 6th month, he switches off his phone or her phone. Now the supplier starts hiding from the customer, because they had underestimated the demand. And so we need to really, when we are going to approach markets, to be able to know that we can create that reliable supply. Because if you have gotten a contract with someone out there, and you supply, is expecting you to supply for continuously, and you supply for 6 months, and you switch off your phone and disappear, it is very unlikely that that person will contract you, leave alone you yourself, but even may be very skeptical in trying to contract any other person from Uganda. So another is we need to harness the synergies that we can have. Let's move away from this business of thinking that we can always work alone. Let's form cooperatives, join cooperatives. Ronald, you talked about them. Form farmer groups. If you find that you cannot, as I mentioned, the point 1, the second point, if you find that you cannot find the production, don't be selfish. If you find the contract, come from a cooperative and say, I found a contract, supply shea seeds in this country, supply shea butter here, supply maize, whatever it is. Form a cooperative, a farmers group, association, so that you can meet meet the production requirements or the volumes, and also it helps you and increases your for better lobbying and bargaining power. Participate in regional trade fairs. We annually we always have an ESC SME regional fair, and actually we are privileged that this year in December it is going to be hosted by Uganda in a place which we are yet to determine, because the two cities of Gulu and Mbarara had both shown interest to host it, but as the National Organizing Committee, we are still doing a verification of the two cities to see that they do have all the facilities that are required, because the ESC Trade Fair Exhibition Manual has got a checklist of the things you ought to have before you can be able to host this regional trade fair, because you're going to have over 1,000 SMEs from across the region coming there to share technologies, to sell, to meet in symposia, and also to have national days where you exchange cultural dances, songs, and all that. It's quite an interesting area. And it's an area where one can find quite a lot of business. One person, for instance, in Uganda here, who is in the fabrication, when he went to Eldoret last year for the trade fair, he was able to get a contract for 200 hospital beds in Eldoret. Up to now, he's working on that contract. There's another group who went to the trade fair. They also got the one of Bujumbura. He got a contract to supply these bamboo chairs. Bamboo chairs. They're made of like bamboo. I'm not sure whether it's bamboo, but it's like a shrub also. I mean, like a tree. So up to now, he's still supplying to restaurants and hotels in Bujumbura. The other fabricators who were able also to get a contract when Shell company was visiting some of the stores, they were given a contract to fabricate these around the things they put on gases. What do you, I don't stands where you put your saucepan when you put the gas, and these stands which you put on top of the cylinders. These cylinders which have got stands which are not necessarily connected to ovens or to cookers. So really, you can see that once you get into these trade fairs, you get to see what your friends out there are doing. You get to share experience. You get also to find contacts which you can fulfill, thereby expanding your business. I want you to encourage you so that you concentrate on your competitive advantages. You do not scatter your efforts. I've seen many SMEs who, for instance, he has traveled to. He's in the area of cosmetics. He reaches another country. They tell him, no, you know what? Here, when you reach here, arts and crafts are very, very lucrative. Now he moves from there and goes arts and crafts. When he goes to another country, they tell him, if you could bring here maize, he now moves to maize. So you find that he's always rolling, and the English say that a rolling stone gathers no moth. So once you keep rolling like that and you don't focus your efforts on your competitive advantage or your area of choice or your area where you really enjoy doing that, because even business, you need to be able to enjoy it. Once you are doing something you are not enjoying, chances are that you are not going to do it very well. And chances are that you are not going to provide a solution or a service, because ultimately whatever you are doing should be providing a solution or a service to your client. And then your reward is the money or the income you get from that service. Utilize regional instruments. I don't know how many of you on this forum have ever heard of something called the Simplified Trade Regime. I don't know how many of you, but if there are a few of you, I would encourage Ronald, please let us find, if you can find a time for like clinics where SMEs can be trained on some of these things. Simplified Trade Regime is a simple regime which was put specifically for SMEs, cross-border trade, export and import regime, so that when you are an SME, you don't have with your products which are less than $2,000, you don't have to line up behind a truck carrying roofing items which are worth millions of dollars. You have your own green channel through which you can pass. We have put what we call trade information desks at different borders. You will find them in Busia, in Malaba, in Eregu, in Bunagana, in Mpondwe, in all the points at the East African region, in Mutukula. You will find their trade information desks, and they are run by trade information desk officers who were put there specifically to support SMEs in filling a simplified rules of origin certificate. The certificate of rules of origin, which is carried by the big companies, is maybe quite complicated, but the one you have to fill is quite simple under this simplified trade regime. It is simple in the sense that it's just a short form. They don't have to ask you very many questions, methods of production and all that, because rules of origin also depend for you to be able to, are the ones which determine whether you will be able to benefit from the preferential treatment which is available within the region. Because for you to be able to benefit, you must have at least added more than 65% of the value, or at least the imports you must not have imported more than 30% of the products used for that product. So it's also important for SMEs to understand, especially those in the production, to understand rules of origin and how they apply, so that when you are doing your mathematics and you are costing your costing of the products you bring in. I know you sometimes, let me give an example. If you are in making arts and crafts, sometimes you buy zips for the bag because those zips are not made in Uganda. You buy buttons, you buy maybe other accessories which are not necessarily originating from Uganda. So you must be able to have the capacity to compute the value you are adding, the transformation you are making to that product, so that you can see whether it can originate and therefore be eligible for preferential treatment within the EAC. If we don't do that, soon as competition increases, other partners are going to start using some of those instruments to stop our goods from accessing their markets on the guise that they are not originating from Uganda. I want to encourage you also to take advantage of our embassies and missions in the partner states for information gathering. Again, I want to ask you, and you have those answers within yourselves. How many of you, when you visit, say, Arusha, as you have said, or Dar es Salaam, or Kinshasa, or Juba, or Kigali, how many of you pay even a courtesy call to our embassies and you say, this is what I'm doing? You leave there your business card to the whoever. I know we don't have at the moment trade attaches in these embassies, but work is being undertaken to ensure that there are trade attaches to be attached, whose job is to eat, drink, walk, breathe, and think only about business for our partner, our enterprises in Uganda, to be on the lookout for any business opportunity that happens or that comes up, so that they can quickly inform our people in the country to mobilize themselves to take advantage of those opportunities. So those are some of the things I think if we could do those. And lastly, which I didn't put here, is let's also change our mindset. Let us be honest, so that sometimes I have had people who have approached our embassies complaining that they send resources to some of our SMEs who claim that they are going to supply them some products and they never do it, or they supply products which are different or of a lower quality than earlier agreed. So it's important also that we keep ethics and morality and honesty in the business transactions. I can quickly tell you the importance, give you an example of the importance of ethics and how they can support development. If you go to Natete many of the people who grew up earlier in the 80s, who were selling the spare parts of vehicles and what along Natetende over there before Chiseka came up. Those people used to pick those items from Japan on credit. Many of them, I need not name them. I know many of you may know some of them are now rich because they had that bridge to cross by getting things on credit, motor vehicles, spare parts. They sell them here and send back money to their suppliers in Japan. But in the early 90s and the mid 90s, a new crop of business people came up who would go to Japan, pick the vehicles, pick the spare parts and all that, and they disappear and not pay back. After that, of course, the English say that beaten once, twice shy. The Japanese said no, for any other one person taking any product, you must pay cash upfront. So you can imagine how that big opportunity was lost simply because some unscrupulous individuals felt that they wanted to make a quick buck at the expense of the suppliers. So ethics are really important, and it is trust which runs any business, because if you want to do letters of credit, anything, it is about trust, because someone will pay you according to there's what we call on-site letters of credit. So this is also another area about Incoterms, export and cross-border procedures, which I think our people also need to be trained about. If someone says a letter of credit, what does it mean? If he says free on board, if he says CIF, what does all that mean, and what are the implications to the what? To the business. So what challenges do exist in accessing these opportunities? We have to be honest that in Uganda, the cost of doing business is still high, especially in energy, in transport, in the access to credit or to financing. The interest is still high. All these, when put together, contribute to the cost of doing business. And then there's the cost of doing business, and also there's the ease of doing business. They are two different things. The ease of doing business now refers to how fast or how easy do you get your license. If you apply for an export license for products which are restricted, how fast do you get it? If you apply for a license from KCA or from any local government, how fast do you get it? Do you have to put in Kintu Kidogo fast? If you apply for energy from Umeme, how fast do you get it? And what connection to your, if say you have a small facility for a value addition, if you apply to National Environmental Management Authority for an environmental impact assessment, how fast does it come? All those are costs that come into the ease of doing business, that create or give the ranking for ease of doing business. I've not put it here, but our ease of doing business is also still not easy. We are not ranking well. So there are areas which we need also to work on. We have limited capacity, I talked about it, of meeting the standards. One, maybe because some of the standards were ignorant about their availability, but UNBS is out there and is able to support anyone who is interested to develop a capacity, a standard. If you reach a market and you discover that there's a market where, for instance, there are no standards, take an example, just a few weeks ago, UNBS was trying to develop standards for senin, because they discovered that the senin had no standards. People were frying it using transformer oil, others were using, I don't know. So they felt the packaging and the standards needed to be improved to safeguard people from unhealthy and unsafe products. I had mentioned this earlier, limited understanding of cross-border export and import procedures. If you ask someone, what do I need to export? Many people will find it very difficult to answer that question. I think this is an area also we need to build capacity for our SMEs. I already talked about the raw production, which makes supply intermittent and unreliable. and therefore makes us difficult for us to hold down contracts. Non-tariff barriers. This is a very interesting word for many people. Non-tariff barriers, they manifest themselves in very, very many ways. Multiple transit fees, you reach somewhere, you are transiting, they are asking you for fees every time. I remember at a time when South Sudan had just gotten its independence, I had been attached there as a trade attaché briefly. But I remember that from each province you would cross, you would have to pay a fee, and not a small fee, $50. Each province you would cross, if you are going to Juba, you would pay $50. Because at that time they were running like a devolution government. So each governor felt that they were required to collect their own fees. So it was very expensive to cross to Juba. You would have to spend, not to mention the roadblocks and all that, you would have to spend over $500 just in fees, and receipted, unexplainable, and all those fees. Then there was closure of border. I don't want to go into that. Then there is the harassment, all sorts of things. You find that because you are in a new territory, you are really not being treated as you ought to be treated if you are in your own country. You will also face transactional fees, of course. I mean, transactional risks, such as non-payment, but these can be the risks, as you all know, risks can be mitigated or avoided, but the mitigation is the best, where you can go for insurance, which we have, for instance, what they call African ATI, African Insurance. It's an institution which insures globally, I mean in Africa, even political risks and other transitional risks. You can go for bank guarantees, you can go for escrow account payments, all that kind of thing, so that you don't face a risk of not getting your payment from the people you supply to. But this can also be resolved through, as I said earlier, using our embassies to assist in information and in due diligence, so that they can be able to do due diligence in the country to which you wish to export, or from whom you want to import. Because these opportunities, by the way, are not only export opportunities, but you may want to import, say, some products which you want to add value in Uganda from Tanzania, and you find a company, but you're not sure whether if you send your money, that company will indeed deliver those products. So, however, that's also a transactional risk. But as I said, you can use insurance, letters of credit, use the embassies to support or help in due diligence. Language barriers. Ugandans were known not to speak very good very good Swahili. I always hear a joke that Swahili was born in DRC Congo, grew in Kenya, matured in Tanzania, and died in Uganda, something like that. Meaning that they all know that we don't understand Swahili very well. And sometimes when you are trying to transact with someone who knows you don't understand the language, he or she may deliberately even complicate it so as to confuse you and perhaps cheat you in the process, or frustrate you. So we also need to find a way of getting our SMEs to understand at least the basic business language, Swahili business language, because if you see across the region, Lingala may be hard to study to go to Congo, but if you know some Swahili, you can talk in Congo, can communicate in Congo, you can communicate in Burundi, in Rwanda, it's fine. You can do it in English, you can communicate in Kenya, Tanzania, so you can do it in South Sudan. So I think language Swahili, business Swahili business, business language in Swahili is an area we need to look into. Poor infrastructure is also a big problem, especially with our new member in Congo. It's very difficult. Reaching Goma is quite easy, but after that, reaching other areas can be very tricky. especially actually you may not be able to cross to go to Congo to Kinshasa without having to fly. And yet there are very, very huge markets there which can be reached if our SMEs could find access there. Markets in simple things such as the beef, just the beef, fish. Those people there, you'll find that just a small piece of poultry, of chicken and chips, a plate like this goes for $50. I recall the last time we were there for the Comesa Summit in 2014. The chicken we were eating, everything we were eating was coming from Brazil, from across the ocean from Brazil. So they don't have food. And although they have a lot of arable land, but much of it is not under agriculture because of mining and other challenges that have been going through, especially civil wars. So there's an opportunity there for food in that country. Which partners can be approached to break into this market? Of course, I cannot forget to start with our ministry. We have a department of a directorate of micro, small, and medium enterprises. We do quite a number of things, which I'll show you later as we move forward. We have Uganda National Bureau of Standards. Within National Bureau of Standards, there is a specific unit which deals with SMEs to assist you in getting certification for your products, so that you can access the rewarding markets with a good quality and standards, as I mentioned earlier. There are financial institutions. You may all have heard of the recovery fund set up by government, where government has set aside 100 billion to be given to participating financial institutions, who will also contribute another 100 billion to make 200 billion, which as a COVID recovery fund for SMEs. This is regulations were put in place how to access this money. I don't know. I don't have statistics on how many people have accessed it so far, or how easy or how difficult it is to access. Maybe you will tell us as we go into discussions. We have Stanbic. Stanbic has been really very keen on SMEs, and they are very strong on this. They have, for example, set up the COVID-19 Business Info Hub, which is a platform to communicate and coordinate. The word is to communicate and coordinate efforts of SME recovery in Uganda. Sorry, it is repeated, communicate and communicate, supposed to be communicate and coordinate. So Stanbic is really a very, very strong partner whom I would encourage you to approach. And they have very good products for SMEs on credit access, as long as you can show that you have got a daily income or an income which comes through your account on Stanbic. You can access some funding through their accounts. I think they are doing a good job. Uganda Investment Authority, they also have got an SME department which you can approach. We've got PSFU, we've got, of course, Enterprise Uganda, who are responsible for this, what we are doing this morning. UZIA, Federation of SMEs, we're working closely with them and UNDP in supporting export of SMEs to African Continental Free Trade Area. But of course, once you have produced your product, once they have given you that capacity, they are not going to tell you that you must only export to African Continental Free Trade Area. And after all, EAC is also, the partner states are also in the ESFTA. So they are also working, UNDP is working on that. The other civil society, ABI, TechnoServe, AgriPoint, Agra, there are quite many. The list is long. And then development partners, as you see them over there. So what support exists from government? I've already talked about the standards and quality, so I will not labor much on it. We have got SME profiling and database development. We have our district commercial officers in every local government. Their job, among the other jobs, is to profile SMEs. I don't know whether they are doing it so well, but I know that some of them are doing a good job, but some of them may be a bit not up to standard. But we are profiling SMEs, we are creating a database, and the purpose is that we know who is where, because you cannot do much intervention without having data. We know who's doing what, we know how much capital they have put in, we know what challenges they are meeting, and that helps us to design targeted interventions to support those SMEs. We are providing business development services. These are very wide. When someone says business development service, it is a wide and quite a big word. It simply means that any service that helps an SME or a business to grow. Once you train someone in customer care, in developing bankable proposals, which they can take to the bank, in record keeping, which helps you to track your records, and the bank or a financial institution is able to come and visit you and look at your records, and you have a footprint of accounts so that they can do credit rating. It's very important because many of our SMEs actually are making quite a lot of money out there, but they have no records to show to anyone. His guy can, an SME will tell you, I'm selling so much matoke worth 3 million every week, but he has nothing, not even a piece of paper where he has written his sales, what the transport costs, whatever it is. Everything is in his in his head. So we try to train them so that they can at least learn the record keep entrepreneurship training, which helps them to run their businesses, to market their products, to brand, to position themselves, to source for businesses, to pitch for markets and all that. Hands-on technical training for value addition. We have got a specific training for value addition in our Department of Business Development and Quality Assurance. We have trained quite a number. People will be glad to share with you the statistics. Cluster development, to develop clusters, to know this is a cluster. For instance, we are developing a leather cluster, and we have put an incubation center at MTAC for footwear, specifically for footwear. And once they have picked up, we can be able to approach places, I mean, business, a bit like schools. We know schools buy quite a number of shoes and things like that, leather belts, shoes, and then we can link them to the businesses so that they can supply them youth and apprenticeship and also internship programs, where we attach the youth so that they can learn on the job and something small. And once they get interested, they can also go out there and go on their own to start their own businesses. Business incubation and SME workspaces. We have put up user facilities, common user facilities to incubate hand-holding SMEs, so that you learn as we handhold you, and then when you're able to walk on your own, we let you go out into the world. Exposure of SMEs to alternative financing options. We are looking at other financing options like invoice factoring. If you have an invoice, if you have supplied to a company, you have your invoice of $2 million, you should be able to sell, to factor your invoice. Maybe someone gives you 1.8 million and then takes over the invoice, and when the sales come in, then his price is that's the difference of 200, rather than waiting for 3 months for you to be paid, while you could have used that 1.8 to earn another 2 million by the time the other invoice matures. Those are alternative financing options that we are also looking at. And then leasing. Why should you have to buy a product or a machinery? I mean, a machine upfront. You can lease it, use it, and return it. So we're also working on regulations and areas on how do we work on SMEs on that in the leasing area. The mentorship programs are more related to apprenticeship and internship. I don't want to go much into it. Access to markets. We are supporting members or SMEs to go into expos. We give them recommendations. We support them by identifying the expos. As we speak, as I told you earlier, Uganda is going to host the one of this year, East African Trade Fair of 2020. So we are in high gear, and SME members are part of the NOC. Provision of BDS, I already said it, advice service and counseling, then advocacy on behalf of the SMEs. Those are some of the major things we do. If you unpack them, you'll find that there's quite a lot. I have not gone into the policies we make this side because those are internal and they come, they are all this, they fall across all of these areas, given the policy gap that we identify in any of the areas that I've listed. So let me conclude. I hope I have been able to look at many of them, and I see that in the time I've been given, I have overshot it. Let me conclude like this, is that the opportunities are really plentiful in the ESC, in the region, especially with joining of the DRC Congo, and we need to up our game to access them. And also, I like quoting the Bible with this verse. The opportunities are very many. Where I got this verse is that the opportunities are very many, but those to reach them or to satisfy them are few. It reminded me of the quotation by Jesus when he saw a crowd of people. He was moved and he told his disciples that the harvest is plentiful, but the workers are few. So the opportunities are plentiful, but I believe that the workers are still few. So let's pull up our socks, we increase our production, better our standards, better our networking with other colleagues, information flow, and work with all stakeholders. So we hope that by doing that, we shall be able to compete favorably within the region to achieve or to access the opportunities that will avail to us. I want to thank you, and I hope that I've been able to tackle some of the questions, or if not the questions that Ronald had put to me in his invitation letter. Thank you very much. That's the end of my presentation. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening to me.
Great. Thanks a lot, Cleopas, for that brilliant expose on the opportunities that exist in the East African community. I will request that we give him a shout out, a thumbs up, to just say thank you for the presentation. A number of arguments came out, which I think, in my opinion, are very important. I'll start with what you ended with. A number of thumbs up here coming from various people. Thank you so much, Cleopas, for that submission. I think one of the things which came out clearly is that final bit, that the opportunities are there, but are we going to be able to seize them? I think it's a big challenge. Even within the country, there are many people who have not taken a moment to travel to Gulu to see the opportunities which are there, to travel to Soroti to see the opportunities which are there, to travel to Kabale to see the opportunities which are there, to travel to Mbale to see the opportunities which are there. I think we have a big job to do as entrepreneurs to see how to open doors, especially during this period of recovery. Recovery is a difficult place. Many of us, irrespective of the business you have been in, clients have declined. The money in the pockets of many of the people is not that much, and sometimes you need a new injection of energy for your business, and this could be it. And as Cleopas has so kindly shared, it is us saying that, you know what, I might be in this space and I want to be able to open a door and be able to get there. I'm going to give an opportunity to those who want to ask a couple of questions. Please do just put up your hand and you can participate in the conversation. If you choose to use the chat box, that will also be great. A big thank you so much, Cleopas. That's from Lucia. Thank you from Emma Sebunya. Robert Kibuka says, thank you, Bwana Cleopas. A big clap from Zalaika. We have Rebecca says, thank you, Cleopas. It was a lovely presentation. Great. Damasco will go faster. He has his hand up. Damasco, please unmute and then you can ask your question.
Thank you so much, Mr. Cleopas, for this lovely presentation. I think whoever has attended, really, he must have appreciated it. It was insightful and full of knowledge and opportunities. However, my question is about, we've actually seen events happening where our products from our country, Uganda, every time actually get banned from entering Kenya. We know, of course, the disadvantages that come with East African integration, where, of course, bigger states benefit more than we are still more vulnerable compared to Kenya. But then, of course, with the East African ministry, we expect a lot of support, where I don't know why Kenya wakes up one day and then they're like, okay, we've banned Ugandan products, maybe without first entering the negotiation with the member country, Uganda, to at least come to a compromise before business is affected. Because we know the consequences, of course, that come when our products are banned from entering. We saw the case of maize, we saw the case of milk, we saw the case of eggs. So a lot more. They wake up one day and they're like, now this one, we are not allowing it into our country. Now, without, of course, only focusing on the advantages, I don't know how we are intending to fight the trade diversion, because we know our industrialization, say it's still in our South Africa, is still low. So chances are high that, of course, I don't know whether we shall reinforce to make sure that there's trade diversion happening, so that our country, our industries, or our products locally produced within East Africa are given opportunity. Because we look at the Chinese products actually continue storming in our market, meaning that I don't know whether you'll be able to enforce trading only happening within our East African community. Now, lastly, what I wanted to ask is how is East African community also helping the services sector, say in Uganda? Because you realize that in Uganda also now, the people are more skilled and they are actually doing services, offering services, which of course is still limited in East Africa. You see, like, let me talk about engineering services, where most of the Kenyan firms come to Uganda and they do a lot of business, but it's very hard to get actually licenses in Kenya, and yet it's an open market for the region. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Damasco. I will also take Abdu. Abdu, please unmute and ask your question.
Thank you, Ronald. Mine is not a question. I'm just giving a submission to fellow entrepreneurs on how to, penetrate the expanded East African community. This regards the quality. The market is expanding, but as agripreneurs, especially those who are in agriculture and agro-processing, we need to be cognizant of the fact that quality of our agricultural products and produce is deteriorating. We now have a big challenge of increased levels of aflatoxins in the grain, in the horticulture, in the products like beef, eggs, many others. And this has led to our last year when Kenya blocked entry of our grain into their country, simply because of high and alarming levels of aflatoxins, which could cause a health problem to their people. So consumers are increasingly becoming conscious of food safety, and therefore as produce and our products from the farm along the entire value chain until we reach the market, so that we are able to penetrate this increasing market. If we do not improve the way we handle our products are likely to continue being rejected, and we'll miss out on the opportunities in the expanded East African community market. Then lastly, I wanted to say, if we are also going to benefit from this expanded market, we need to promote business linkages. We need to ensure that as farmers, as entrepreneurs, we work together and expand the services that we can get that help us get to the market better. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Abdu. Deogracius.
Thank you so much. Mine is a simple one. The presenter talked about the mentorship and apprenticeship. So how do we best harness? How do you get more information about this opportunity? And I think you also talked about the competition. This calls for competition. Like the East African community, joining the East African community creates more competition. My question is here, when you look at our shilling, I think in the community, we are the country with the least value of the shilling. So I think that one would put us also at the last or at the bottom of the pyramid of competition. So how do we best work upon that? Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Deogracius. I'm going to, there's one from Chibuka here. One of the most critical needs for triggering East African business is awareness. You tell us about what exists in Congo. For instance, as you're telling us for what exists in Congo and Sudan has opened our eyes to the possibility. Yeah, I think that was a comment from Chibuka that awareness is still one of the key things which we need to make sure to make sure that
Ronald, I can't hear you. Can everyone?
We can be able to win. About sorry about that. I hope you can hear me now.
Yes,
Is that
I can.
better?
Yes, sir.
Yes, good. I was saying that I think one of the comments which was being made by Damasco here is the political angle and the fact that how do we make sure that sometimes you mentioned that there are sovereign states, and how do we make sure that that tension, sometimes which is driven by the political interests of specific nations, how can we be able to balance that? I'll take Emma's comment and possibly then allow you to answer. I think the opportunities are there for sure, but need some kind of personal research for specific sectors, which is costly, yet the information sometimes exists in each country's investment authority. Do we have information from the different East African member countries on what's needed to invest in each country? The terms and the conditions, the taxes, business registration, land acquisition, and if the information is available at your office, can we be able to get that knowledge? I think that was the question. Julius Masaba has a number of questions here. He says, agribusiness is the backbone of Uganda. In fact, one time, Reboba Fabi said if it hadn't been for agriculture, Uganda would have double, triple digit inflation. The PS recently talked about the fact that agriculture can't develop. How do we motivate Ugandans to take part in the East African community at the main export, Greek, and yet feel discouraged sometimes? I think that was a statement of the agriculture, I believe, in a specific form. I think the value addition is where the opportunity lies. Then he asks, the East African Inception Manual has talked about having a checklist of certain things. How can we get it, and can you share? Yeah, that's good. That is still, and then there is another one from, another question still from Julius. Explain more about the simplified trade regime. Is there a detailed material we can use or access freely? Thank you. And how is government fast tracking and harmonizing the tax regime and product exports or import quotas within the region? Cleopas, I'll possibly allow you to answer those, and then we will see how much time we are left with after.
Thank you, Ronald. Okay, let me start from the last ones. So because they are the ones I had not written down well, so they are still fresh in my mind. How is government harmonizing you said export and import regime? First of all, under the East African Community Treaty, which set up the treaty, we are in a free trade area, duty-free, quota-free. Duty-free, quota-free means that we don't pay any duties for products crossing between East Africa, partner states, and there are no quotas. In case there is a need for a quota, like in the case of sugar, exporting sugar to Kenya, there is always a council decision. A council is the ministers responsible for East African community affairs are the ones who sit on the council. But in the case of Kenya asking for that quota, actually, it did not even go to East African community. It went to the COMESA, Council of Ministers, and asked for the quota, saying that we are still developing our sugar industry. It is still an infant industry, because there are provisions within all treaties, trade agreements, to support what they call safeguard measures. These are put in place to allow countries to be able to enter those agreements. If a country were to enter an agreement without a fallback position, for example, if milk overflooded from any country into Uganda, we have got policy space to say, no, we think there's so much imported milk, which is cheap, coming into our country and is injuring or destroying our domestic industry. And we have the liberty to slap or to impose tariffs, higher tariffs on that milk that is coming into the country. But you don't do it unilaterally. You have to consult with your partners and other. That is an area of trade remedies, which specific areas of trade policy which have an impact on your trade. So on harmonizing, it is already harmonized, as I said, because we went in a common market, in a customs zone first, where we have a common external tariff, in a common market where we have the 4 rights and the 2 rights and the 4 freedoms. So it is already harmonized. What happens is the things you see people putting on different types and all that are the exceptions, not the rule. There are things that are happening outside the rules. So on simplified trade regime, yes, as you said, we have a lot of information on simplified trade regime, and we're happy to share it with you. And even when you go to our website or the ministry, you can find it. And perhaps what I didn't even tell you was that it is not only the EAC which has the simplified trade regime, but even the COMESA has got it, the simplified trade regime, and they are almost similar. And the way it operates is that partner states, who especially with the congruent borders, sit together and they agree on a common list of originating products. I want to tell you, when I talked about the $2,000, it must be originating. So don't go to China and bring toys from China. You say these toys are not more than $2,000 and expect to sell them to the partner state duty-free because you want to benefit from the simplified trade regime. No, they must be originating. Is that clear? And then I never got clear this manual, the East African something manual. Let me skip this. Maybe I will come back to that when I understand the question quite well. Then on the information is available, as you have said, and I'm surprised actually that I overlooked the EAC, East African Business Council, That is the one that brings all the businesses in the partner states together. Once you approach them, you can even find their website. They have all the investment areas and all the opportunities that can be found across the region. The East African ESC Business Council. I'm sure you have heard about it. And we have also made some profiles for different countries, this country and different countries, which can be accessed, and would be glad to share those with you. I go to Mr. Chibuka, who talked about awareness, and I think he's really very, very right. Awareness, awareness, awareness. You cannot benefit from what you don't know. You find that in Kenya, for example, for them, they have a dedicated Kenya SME authority. It's a Kenya micro and small authority. The medium, they don't work with in that authority. And one of their major roles is to create awareness on. And this awareness, I want to tell you something I had not also mentioned earlier in my presentation, is that SMEs are now international, on the international radar. As I speak now, there is at the World Trade Organization a group called the Friends of SMEs, and they have developed a paper which they are going to, a declaration, they call them declarations, which they are going to read to the 12th Ministerial Council, which is happening soon. And once that paper is adopted, they intend to say that countries across the members of the WTO should give preferential treatment, special and preferential treatment to small and medium enterprises. Special treatment in terms of trade facilitation, in terms of requirements for tax filing, in terms of taxation, in terms of licensing and all that. Those of you who are acquainted with the special and differential treatment at the World Trade Organization, which is given to least developing countries, will understand it. They now want to move it further just by not only saying the LDC, but even within the LDC, there are those who are at a disadvantage, and those are the SMEs. So even within the LDC, those people within who are SMEs should be able to have even deeper special and differential treatment. So SMEs are in future going to be seriously on the radar, and no doubt, even in the Sustainable Development Goals, you all know that many of the goals of economic, of poverty eradication, of inclusive growth, of gender equity, those cannot be achieved without SMEs, because SMEs are the ones which can foster inclusive growth, because many of the trader business people are in SMEs. So even at the UN level, SMEs are critically being looked at. Deo, you wanted to know about mentorship and apprenticeship. Yes, we have in here, we endeavor through our Ministry of our Department of Industry to recommend SMEs to different industries, huge industries that they can take them on, especially for training. We also have a specific, under Uganda Industrial Research Institute, a training or a tooling section which was created in Namamve, where if you want to learn, for instance, how to make board nuts, how to make fasteners, how to make these things, the small parts that go into machinery, you can be taken there and trained. And I think as I speak now, it's still free of charge. And Professor Kwesiga's Yuri. You talked also of the Uganda shilling being one of the weakest, which is can be both a disadvantage and an advantage. If it is the weakest, it makes our exports, people can buy our exports much cheaper. So we become competitive in that way. You know, China has always been devaluing its money specifically to make its exports cheaper. So a weak shilling sometimes is not, of course, need not be too weak, is sometimes an advantage in that your exports become cheaper. But nevertheless, that notwithstanding, you know that the EAC is moving towards the monetary union, where we will have a common currency, and that will take out issues of competition, especially in investment, where we are trying to give the best incentives and all that, which creates a race to the bottom for the partner states. Once we have a common shilling, we have a harmonized investment regime, then you'll find that we will have a smoother investment environment in the partner states. Abdu, I want to thank you for your comment. Was spot on the poor quality and high aflatoxin. The other time, Kenya wanted to take over 600,000 metric tons of maize. They didn't take it simply because the aflatoxin levels were beyond what they call the tolerant levels, the maximum tolerance levels. So the aflatoxin is found in very many products, and they're always there, some small levels, but if it goes beyond a certain level, then you find that it cannot be tolerated, and it becomes dangerous to both human and animal life. And then you talked about synergies. We need to synergize, as you correctly said, form groups, form associations, where we can learn better. That's good. I already talked about. Then on services, that was Damasco. You talked about services sector. How do we access in the AC? At the moment, what I'm aware of is that there is a mutual recognition agreement. The engineers have, I believe engineers and lawyers are working on mutual recognition and qualifications. The challenge that has been happening is that you train in one country, when you reach the other country, they tell you you have to first take tests or exams in this particular subject, because we don't feel that your training was up to standard to serve in our country. But mutual recognition agreements on services, different areas, lawyers, agriculture, have been happening, have been ongoing, and I may need to update myself further on how far they have gone, but I know that is work also in progress. So in the service sector, we also need to move faster, because I know that Uganda is quite more open than our partner states. And Ugandans were hospitable as always, but some of our partner states have not always been as open as we would have wished them to be. And this is a discussion that we continue to take forward. Then Damasco, you also talked about trade diversion. I think you wanted to, I thought you wanted to imply that if someone goods accessing our market being disguised as originating goods, while they are actually goods originating from other areas. You mentioned one country, and that's true, and that happens. But that's why we have rules of origin, and each country is required to apply them very stringently. And that's why you see some of our partner states, when Kenya didn't want to take our sugar, they accused us of picking the sugar from Pakistan, then we repackage it, and then we call it Ugandan sugar. They came here for a verification, 3 days, I think 2 working days verification. They visited our sugar plants in Kachira, Rugazi, Chinyara, and they were convinced that indeed we had the capacity. So this is an area which it's an enforcement area. Rules of origin are enforced. You can't say it's a one-off. So it's an area where we have to keep vigilant to ensure that some people do not introduce goods onto the markets which do not qualify for preferential treatment, and thereby denying the rightful goods an opportunity. So on the products which were banned, you know that some of these things, as you said, are political and are resolved at high levels, but there's always been effort. But in the EAC also, there is an act, a specific act, which is the East African Act on Elimination of Non-Tariff Barriers. And this is an area, an act which could have been able to address some of these issues of banning other products. But as always, when you are dealing with a sovereign country, you really always don't want to start with litigation as a first starting point. Negotiations, building consensus are always the best areas of approach as a starting point, so as to keep good relations with our partner states. I think those are the questions that I was able to take up. I hope I have not missed out any question from the members.
I think there was one in the chat room, agribusiness as the backbone, from Julius. I don't know whether I've seen it in the chat room.
Let me check. From Julius.
He said agribusiness is the backbone of Uganda. Honorable Mafabi has said if it weren't for agriculture, would be in double or triple.
About agriculture.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, I think
I alluded to the comments of the PSST recently about development as a result of agriculture, but I think he's speaking to how do we encourage people to be able to do agriculture, especially along the value chain. You could comment on that quickly.
Okay. Okay, first, let me thank Margaret Naruoga. She has also told that the accountants also have agreements within ESC. Thank you, Margaret. So on agriculture, I have not seen the comment. I just heard the comment the PS made. But if you look at the trajectory countries have taken in development, first of all, they have had to secure have food security and food safety. And as development goes on, economically, you find that the percentage in the farming area they move away from farm to services and manufacturing. But that is not to say that because there's a small percentage in agriculture, that agriculture is not critical for development. The only reason why we sometimes perhaps think that because 2% of EU may be liberalized in agriculture, then it is not critical, is simply because that you find a farmer, for example, in Europe, with the wheat on 10 square miles. In Uganda, you will not find anyone with that kind of land to put under wheat. So you find that because of the fragmentation of the land and the scattered land, we have so many people in land because there are so many pieces of land. It is the nature of our land and the nature of the space we have and the ownership of the land. So, but that shows you that because that one person in Europe, the one I mentioned, can feed millions of thousands, millions of his compatriots, and even have access to export in the agriculture sector. That is why you still see that even now, as I speak, in the Doha agreement negotiations, agriculture agreement is not yet concluded because of the sensitivities of agriculture. But I believe that being an agro-based economy, if we produce more and can add value to our products like dairy, beef, it can drive industrialization. Because the kind of industrialization where if we said, let's look for vehicles, are we going to compete, for example, with Japan in making vehicles? We're already making vehicles, fine. If we say, let's make pharmaceuticals, much of the products that are coming out of pharmaceuticals are made out of agricultural products. So to me, I think agriculture, if well arranged and organized, add value, it can also drive our development. Much as, of course, as the comment went that you cannot eat 100 kilograms of rice simply because you are a permanent secretary or what, but you know it's not you to eat it, someone else, somewhere else. If you add value, you can do it, can take it and use it. So I think agriculture is still, we cannot underestimate agriculture's importance in driving our development. And that is why you see that even in our NDP3, under the pillars, it is the first one, agro-industrialization. So in my view, as Ndorere, this is not the ministry's view, This is as Ndorere. So I don't want you to quote me and say Ministry of Trade has said that the PS of Finance is wrong or what. Me, I'm speaking now as Ndorere, that agriculture is still important for our what? For our industrialization.
Yeah. Lovely, lovely, lovely. Thanks a lot, Cleopas, for those lovely, lovely submissions. I want to say a big thank you to everyone who has joined us today. Our time is out. We usually want to end, we have overrun by about 5 minutes, but a big, big thank you. Cleopas, you have the number of comments which are coming through, many saying thank you for the work which you have done and sharing. Robert says we should engage other bodies in the East African community so that we can be able to push this conversation on. I think we totally take that feedback and we'll consider it as we plan these meetings. But I guess for me, it is the appreciation of the fact that we can all be able to make a step in, irrespective of the business which we are doing. Mr. Ndorere talked about Burundi, which is a country which is often forgotten. Whenever you think about the East African community, many of us have possibly not visited, but sometimes as an entrepreneur, it's just taking a bus and going down there and asking yourself, what opportunities can I? Could be an accountant, you could be a lawyer, and you say, you know what, can I be able to do some business here? Even for a part, you may be a teacher of English, and you go and say, you know what, every holiday I'll spend 3 weeks to do an English class for a number of people, and can we be able to take this up? We believe that that's how opportunities can be built. Once again, a big thank you, everyone, for joining. Thank you so much, Cleopas, for taking off time to share this. Please send our greetings to the Ministry of Trade, Industry and Cooperatives. Say a big thank you to them for the work they are doing for the nation. And we'll continue engaging, we'll continue conversing. I think there are a couple of people who say, how do we reach you? Mr. Ndorere, you possibly could just share your email in the chat box so that people can be able to capture that and the contact where you can be reached. But by and large, a big thank you, everyone, for coming through, for joining the session. We'll be here again next Thursday at 9, still with our business recovery series. We keep the meeting open for about 10 minutes so that people can engage, tell us what they do. If there is some business we can be able to do together, we kind of go out of our way and we do that business. That's really what we want. That's the purpose of these sessions. Once again, big thank you, and have a blessed week as we keep pushing. Don't give up, keep pushing. The times are tough, but we believe we can be able to win. Thanks a lot, and have a lovely time. Emma, someone is going to post our website. Derek, you can help me post the website link.
So thank you, Ronald. Thank you so much. So you will allow me to exit?
Hello. Yes, Mr. Cleopas.
much. Thanks to Enterprise Uganda and the participants. So you will allow me to exit?
Yes, please.
Oh,
Yes, please. We can release you.
Thank you very much.
Pano paziko tapinda muka atichachenjeresa notaya mapuziso yose anatipasa Yehova. Shalom, shalom, shalom chimawama osachkonkereza uzavera muchabe. Shalom, shalom, shalom chimawama osachkonkereza uzavera muchabe. Shalom, shalom.